I got a pretty awesome reaction to the video over here when I talked about my favorite 2 ways to start people on weight loss journeys. Whenever I talk about weight loss, there are always going to be questions. Kind of like this one. How about having a great caloric deficit, then having a candy bar within the budget limits once in a while? Would that harm or add to weight? It's a valid question. You've probably heard from the Instagram influencer that I mentioned before, who is just selling diarrhea tea, that if you eat anything but boiled chicken breast and kale smoothies, you're going to gain weight. I hate that guy. So I gave this a lot of thought, combed through the clinical literature, and here's what I came up with. Let me give you my general gestalt first. Again, I used to look like this. My sister actually just sent this to me like 2 days before I'm filming this, and it took me about 1.5 years to get to something that looked like this. And yes, I am a doctor, look at the channel name, and I am also an International Sports Science Academy certified personal trainer. I have been doing this for about 10 years. This picture was taken, I think, 12 years ago. So it's been a while. My first thought is this: we're not looking at an arbitrary number on the scale. Sure, it can be good to have goals and set yourself on that correct path, but how much somebody weighs does not really mean that much to me. An arbitrary number on the scale is not some magic thing that once happens, okay, you're officially healthy now. No, these are habits that we need to develop over the course of your lifetime. And for some of us, developing those habits will lead to losing weight. Again, this guy. So what about these like fad diets that people have sworn by, said they lose all this weight? All right, you do a fad diet, you do it for 8, 12, 16 weeks, however long you do it, and then you hit that magic number, and then what happens? You stop doing that fad diet, you hop back into your previous habits, and then you typically gain the weight back and then some. Does not align with our goal to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible. Enter something called flexible dieting. Sure, if you're in a caloric deficit and eat nothing but Skittles, you will lose weight, but Skittles are not the healthiest food out there, especially if they're the only things you're eating, so please don't do that. Health is more than weight, but you kind of get what I'm talking about. But what about that candy bar every so often? Is it okay? Is it gonna hurt? No. Actually, I think it's probably gonna help. If you go too extreme with weight loss, you're more likely to kind of fall off. Sure, you can do a lot of calorie restricting and a lot of super clean eating for a few days or maybe even a few weeks, but eventually you're gonna go kind of bananas. Again, the goal is for the rest of your life not to hit some arbitrary number on the scale. It's actually better to give yourself that wiggle room. Not all of your calories have to come from healthy foods. Most of them should, but not all of them. If you allow yourself a little bit of respite from those clean foods every now and again, and it's different for different people at different places in their weight loss journey doing different things, you're more likely to stay on that for a longer period of time, developing those appropriate habits so that you can be that healthy into your 90s and beyond, as opposed to just doing it for 3 weeks, falling off, and falling back into your old habits. But then there's the mental health aspect to this. How many of us have been hangry? I would say all of us. Sure, being a caloric deficit is not going to be the most fun you're ever going to have. We should stop fooling each other. It is kind of awful sometimes. If you don't have those escapes from time to time, in moderation of course, your mental health may suffer. Again, like so many things, speaking from experience. My journey from looking like this to looking like this was not a straight line of clean eating. There were respites in there. When I lost my weight, I lived in downtown Los Angeles, and no, I did not get consumed by the LA lifestyle. If you know me, that's not me. But what I did have access to for the first time in a long time was a big giant city. I had the weekend to look forward to. I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to do anything for anybody. I could just kind of relax. I could chill. I could do whatever I wanted. That was something to look forward to. But what about during the middle of the week when I am working and I'm tired and I'm stressed? And we talked about in the last video how all those 3 things together bring your willpower to 0. So what happened? Every Wednesday for like 50 Wednesdays in a row, I would leave my apartment, walk a half mile to Five Guys, have a double cheeseburger and fries, and walk a half mile back, and that was my scheduled respite for the week. And no, I'm not sponsored by Five Guys. That's just kind of what was there and what I decided to do. Yeah, I was probably in a caloric surplus on Wednesdays, but one caloric surplus day, as long as it doesn't outdo the rest of the days of the week, will still leave you in a caloric deficit. All days that weren't Wednesday, if I was in a caloric deficit and my Wednesday caloric surplus did not outdo them, guess what? I'm still in a caloric deficit, I'm still developing the habits that I need, and I'm still losing weight. So sure, I was in a caloric surplus on Wednesdays, but that mental escape probably afforded me the opportunity to continue it for 1.5 years to get to kind of where I am now. But what does the science actually say? Lucky you, I did some research. The research time and time again has echoed what I'm about to tell you. Essentially, my thoughts based on my own experience are echoed by the literature. Pretty cool, right? Here's a study looking at the relationships between things like BMI, mood, and binging in flexible versus rigid dieting. Now, as an aside, I don't love using BMI routinely. I think too many people look at BMI and focus on BMI and they ignore literally everything else. It's an imperfect tool, but if we know it's an imperfect tool, we can better practice medicine, as opposed to just thinking it's the perfect number for everybody, and it's not. But that's a different discussion for a different video, so let's move on. The strongest correlations with flexible dieting were lower body mass, lower instances of anxiety and depression, and lower instances of overeating. Sounds familiar. Here's another one. This study, exclusively in non-obese women, found that rigid dieting was associated with mood disorders, anxiety, as well as self-reported symptoms of eating disorders, whereas flexible dieting was not. So to answer the question, is it cool if I have a candy bar every once in a while? Yeah, it is. In fact, I encourage it. In my experience, scheduling something to look forward to, something on the horizon, will allow you to focus on that one thing that you know is coming, as opposed to when your willpower is zero, binging on essentially more of those things. In my journey, it happened to be that Wednesday evening meal. I knew it was coming. I was better able to focus on what I had in front of me and my goals for the long term, knowing that those breaks were in there. Now, that may not be your jam and you're looking for other ideas. Here's one that I use routinely in my clinic, and I would say this to you because I would say it to anybody. Schedule the things that you think you're not supposed to be eating. Again, there is no such thing as a bad food. Food is not evil. There is too much of any particular food, but food is not evil. If you are someone that is used to having sweets very often, scheduling something sweet every night at like 7 p.m. may save you from those binges. It's much better, in my opinion, and Math's opinion as well, to have a 300-calorie thing at the end of every day than to restrict yourself from 2 days and have a 2,000 calorie binge after that. These dieting release valves can be great for your mental health. In fact, they are great for your mental health. We have the studies to prove it. And they will keep you on track in a weight loss journey for a lot longer than if you didn't have them. The goal isn't to be perfect 100% of the time, because the overwhelming majority of us won't and or can't. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed interacting with the comments from the last video, and that's why I made this video. So if you like them, please hit that like button, consider subscribing, drop your questions down below in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video.